Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar, B2B Marketing's Big Blind Spot, the data that can unlock better results for every marketing function. I'm Brian Anderson, News Editor at Demand Gen Report, and I'll be your moderator for this presentation. We've got a great presentation in store for you folks today, so let's get started. Going to roll through a few housekeeping slides here. Firstly, be sure to hop online and be social by following along on LinkedIn and or Twitter with the hashtag #ContentInsights. You can also connect with us at the Twitter handles that you see on the screen here. For those of you who may be new to Demand Gen Report, we are an online media company publishing daily news, a weekly email newsletter, special reports, original research, and a rich menu of additional resources. If you haven't done so already, check us out at demandgenreport.com and join over 50,000 subscribers to our weekly newsletter by subscribing today. For today's presentation, we're using the On24 platform. During the presentation, you can access all the information you need from the platform toolbar. You will also see that you can tweet from directly within the On24 platform here using the Twitter widget on the left-hand side of your screen. We also encourage you to ask our presenter questions. To do so, simply click the Q&A widget at the top right corner of the screen that you see here. Today's presentation is slated to run about 25 to 35 minutes with 10 to 15 minutes for Q&A following this session. You can submit your questions using this Q&A widget at any time. Today's session is being recorded, and all attendees will receive an archive link to the presentation to go back and review or to share with your colleagues. Now I am pleased to introduce our featured speaker for this session, Elle Wolf. Elle is a revenue-focused marketer with expertise in digital marketing and demand generation. Equal parts creative wonk and marketing nerd, she's an expert at bringing sales and marketing teams together through shared processes, goals, and KPIs. As the VP of Marketing at Path Factory, Elle is responsible for cultivating awareness and turning interest into pipeline. A veteran in the marketing technology industry, she previously held senior demand gen roles at Lattice Engines and Eloqua. With that, I will pass it over to you, Elle. Go ahead and take it away.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Thanks for spending a couple minutes with me today to talk about B2B Marketing's Big Blind Spot. I won't give away the ending and tell you what that blind spot is, but you will find out. So let's just jump right in. So it will come as no surprise to anyone that we are living in an on-demand world. That whether you're talking about ordering your groceries and having them show up at your front door, hailing a cab from your phone, deciding to go on vacation and have the convenience of staying in a wonderful vacation home, next week, whatever it is that you desire in terms of goods and services, they are today available on demand. It is basically the way the world has been going for the past several years, and we now almost take it for granted that all of the things that we could possibly want, from shoes to home furnishings to groceries to vacation homes, are all available to us on demand. And so as a result of that, we've sort of cultivated our own impatience. People really want what they want when they want it. I know, this is true of me. I live pretty far outside the city. I live in a town where there's no grocery store, and so I need that convenience. I need the ability to order things and have them show up. I've learned not to take my children shopping for shoes because it's incredibly painful, and therefore I order them from Zappos and have them show up, and if they don't fit, I send them right back. So people want what they want when they want it. And they really want these services today to be fast, to be easy, and to be highly relevant and personalized for them. And so as a result of that, the on-demand economy is growing very quickly. It has grown 159% over the past 3 years and is slated to be $57 billion by the end of 2018, okay? So, I mean, this is a big, big business, and there's really no turning back. In fact, there are now over 280 companies in 16 industries that are servicing the on-demand economy, up 268%. That's, down from 3 years ago, it was only 70-some-odd companies in 6 industries. So obviously, it's meeting buyer demand, and lots of vendors have gotten hip to the fact that this is big business for them. So why is it happening? Consumer desire for time-saving ways to procure goods and services, particularly those that are curated and personalized. Again, it's the convenience factor. It's, anything from, not wanting to have to stand out on the street and hail a taxi to not having time to run out and pick up your lunch in the middle of the day because you've got a really busy work day and instead have someone walk through the door and deliver it to you. That convenience factor is a huge part of what is powering the on-demand economy. But if you think about it, so, if we go back to 2007, which was right when Netflix introduced streaming video, I mean, back in the early days of the on-demand economy, it was really about convenience and speed. That was the most important part. That's what people were after, right? Oh, I can order something from Amazon and it can show up at my house in a couple of days and I don't have to go to the mall or I don't have to go to the big box store or whatever. And if you think about it today, what's evolved to is really this desire for a curated experience that's hyper-personalized. I want that homepage when I log in to know exactly, what I didn't buy last time and what might be interesting to me. I want to, get online and see exactly the programs that are relevant to me based on, my behavior and my history. And so our expectations as buyers have changed a lot. We still want convenience and speed, but now we also want it to be unbelievably relevant and tailored to us. So at this point, you're probably like, yeah, we get it. I understand. On-demand economy. What does this mean for B2B marketing? Why is this relevant to me? Well, it's incredibly relevant because our B2B buyers have consumer lives, and the expectations that they now have around the buying process are incredibly different. In B2B marketing, the on-demand experience is really about the journey through content, right? It's really about connecting buyers with the information they need to make decisions, to help them self-educate, to help them self-nurture. And really that's about helping people buy. So if the journey through content is about helping your buyers buy, again, helping them to find the relevant information they need to learn about your products and services so they can become better educated, so they can make buying decisions, that journey through content today doesn't work very well for buyers. And there's a couple of reasons why. The first problem with the B2B buyer's journey is that it's just too slow. For a really engaged buyer, somebody who is really trying to do research to understand, a product, a solution, a category better, to get all the necessary information and context they need to make a buying decision, the process it's just not responsive enough. That active buyer wants to find all of the relevant information that they need in a short amount of time. And the way that we deliver it to them, but through, a scheduled email nurture, through, display ads, by having it sort of scattered all over our website, it simply doesn't react to the way the buyer wants to consume the information and in the speed in which they want to consume it. The next problem is that it's not particularly personalized. Sure, there's been a lot of advancement in personalization in B2B over the past several years. You see more personalized targeted ads. ABM has a lot to do with this. You see website personalization growing. But really, that's not a personalization of the journey. We've gotten good at personalizing the door, right? The initial offer, the initial asset, the initial message. But where B2B marketing falls down today is that the journey itself is not personalized for the buyer. It does not meet them where they are. It does not take into account the last thing they consumed, or their funnel stage, or how many other people in their organization are involved in this buying decision and what those people have consumed. So we really struggle in B2B to deliver on this idea of, right time, right message, because we're really lacking some of the key insights that we need to make it highly personalized. And the last problem is that it's simply too hard, right? Again, the average buyer, even if they are out there trying to become educated and solve a problem and learn more about your product or solution, they don't know what content they need to consume to do that, and they certainly don't know where all that content lives. So we make it really difficult. Again, we drip the content out, we scatter it around, we push it, through lots of different channels, and we somehow hope that buyers will connect with enough of it to become educated. And that, again, for a buyer who now has a consumer life that is so convenient and easy and personalized, the B2B buyer's journey is just too difficult and complicated. So there was a great report recently, or actually last year, written by an analyst at Forrester Research, and it's all about the consumerization of the B2B buyer's journey. B2B consumers expect these brand experiences to have the same type of consistency and sophistication as those that they have in their personal lives. I can turn on Spotify today and I can turn on a channel that was tailor-made just for me. I can log into Netflix and see recommendations that are based on my viewing history. And Amazon knows exactly when I'm going to run out of toothpaste, right? So that's the convenience that I have in my consumer life. And in the B2B buyer's journey, I am met with a slow, complicated, difficult, unpersonalized experience that makes it really hard for me to do the thing I'm trying to do, which is to self-educate and learn. And we all know what happens when we don't adapt to the changes in the buying process. Several years ago, it was about just being able to kind of see at the most basic level what people were doing online. Oh, we can see when they're clicking or visiting the website, and this was groundbreaking. And today, your buyer has new expectations. They are living in this, on-demand world where they expect on-demand experiences. And if we don't, in B2B marketing, adapt to that, we can expect to be met with difficulty. Blockbuster and Borders have had to go out of business because of companies like Netflix and Amazon providing these really tailored on-demand experiences. Nobody wants to walk around the store anymore and figure out what they want. They want to be delivered recommendations that are customized for them. And your B2B buyer is no different. So let's talk about that for a minute. Let's talk about how a company like Netflix makes it so fast and personalized and easy, because it's actually really, really relevant in terms of what we in B2B marketing need to do to provide a similar experience. So Blockbuster aside, and we've already talked about that, let's just think about traditional TV. Traditional television, you turn it on, you go to the guide, you scroll around, you can see all the things that are on right now. It's actually even sometimes a bit overwhelming because there's too many things on. And so, you're forced to sort of spend all this time just figuring out where you want to go versus the experience you have when you open up Netflix. And there's the last shows that you watched. If you're me, it's like a lot of My Little Pony and stuff because my daughter is always watching my Netflix. But, all these recommendations are based on things you've watched in the past. And it's not just the types of shows. It's directors that you like. They're watching how long you've actually watched a program. Did you get all the way through it or did you bag out early? And all of this factors into how they make these recommendations. So the convenience is huge. This is unbelievably curated and customized just for me. So what does Netflix know? And I know, you may have seen this before, but Netflix knows a whole lot about what we're doing. So let's see. This is Steve. What do they know about Steve? Well, they know when he watches a show. They know where he is when he watches it, what device he's watching it on. They know, do the nature of shows vary with the device? Does he watch different things on his phone than on his tablet than on his television? They know when he pauses. They know if he rewatches it or if he just, again, bags out of that show early because he decided he didn't like it. Does he skip the credits or does he want to say all the nitty-gritty details? They know the ratings of the shows that he's watching. With all this data, so Netflix is collecting a tremendous amount, and that's just the viewing data. I mean, that's just the data about what, what's happening when you're actually consuming the content. Don't forget that they've also collected a ton of data when you signed up about your preferences, what you like, what you don't like. So how do they use that information? Well, the first thing that they do is they provide great content. Netflix doesn't create shows, original content, without really having a pretty good idea that it's going to be a success. And we'll talk about House of Cards in a second, because that's actually a really great example. One of the things they don't do is they don't have pilots. When Netflix creates an original series, they actually create the entire series. They do like the whole first season. And they can do that because they don't need to test the pilot, because their data has already told them that they're going to have a successful show. So that's part of it, using all this insight and information and data that they're collecting to actually deliver great content. The other thing that they're doing is what I just said a minute ago. They're using all this insight to really personalize the journey. And personalizing the journey isn't even just the recommendations you see on the screen. It's the trailer you might see for a given show. They actually customize what trailer they deliver to which audiences based on their demographics and viewing habits to try to market these shows better and get you to watch. So this is kind of a neat story about House of Cards and how Netflix came to create House of Cards. So basically what they learned was that viewers of the original BBC miniseries, House of Cards, there was an original show on the BBC, the viewers who tended to watch that show also happened to be Kevin Spacey fans, and they were also fans of David Fincher films. Most of them had watched the Social Network, from beginning to end. He directed that. So when the show was shopped to Netflix, they went and looked at all their data and said, so this is going to be a show with Kevin Spacey, directed by David Fincher, and it's a remake of this House of Cards show. I think that will probably be really successful. And they were right. It was a huge hit. It was a blockbuster, in fact. And as I said, what they started to do is use that data to also market the shows, to create really specific trailers for each individual audience. For women who tended to like female-led programs, they would see trailers that featured the female cast. For folks who really loved Kevin Spacey, they might see a Kevin Spacey trailer. So using all this data, they're really able to personalize the experience that they give to each individual viewer. All right, so as you've probably figured out by this point, B2B marketing's big blind spot has something to do with insight about content and about the consumption of content, about how we can learn more about what people are doing with our content to power really personalized experiences and to get better results from our marketing. So I'll just go ahead and say this. Today B2B marketing is content marketing. I don't think these are two different things anymore. I think content is at the heart of all B2B marketing. It is basically the fabric of B2B marketing. And while it is a discipline unto itself, sure, it is just so interwoven in the fabric of B2B marketing that I don't think there's much marketing that happens out there in B2B that doesn't have content at the center of it, right? That's, I think, a true statement. And so if you think about it, if content is everything, if content is so central to everything we do in B2B marketing, then every engagement that our buyers have with our content should tell us a lot of stuff. We should learn so much by how people engage with this content. Does the buyer find it useful? What was he really interested in? What topic was he interested in? Did it actually move him along the journey? But the thing that we should really be able to figure out from collecting some amount of insight is what should this person see next, and how can we deliver that next best thing? The problem that we have in delivering that experience is that the data that we tend to collect about content engagement today is pretty limited, right? It's the domain of clicks and form fills and downloads. And as I said several years ago, it was groundbreaking that we could start, capturing some of those insights. But times have changed, and so someone clicking on an asset, downloading a piece of content, filling out a form to get access to some information really doesn't tell you anything about their interest, their appetite, where they are on their journey, and what they should see next. Because it's really hard to discern someone who's clicked from someone who's clicked and actually spent a lot of time consuming that information. So going back to, the beginning where I was talking about some of these problems that we have with B2B marketing today, it really all starts with insight, with, data that will tell us how to better personalize, how to speed up our marketing when it's appropriate, and how to make it a lot easier for buyers. Without better insight, we can't solve these problems. We can't make it personalized. We can't, adapt to and be responsive to the buyer and their need for, a faster journey. We can't remove a lot of the complications. So I've waited this long. I'll just say this is the blind spot. The blind spot is not, and I think one of the problems is the word engagement or consumption. I think a lot of marketers today think they have some insight into that. And sure, we all have some basic insight into it, but it's understanding the quality of that interaction with the content. How did your audience consume that content, and was it a good engagement? Did they spend a lot of time? Are they hungry for more information? And if you can figure that out, if you understand what the quality of that interaction was, if it was somebody just downloading that piece of content or downloading it and spending a half hour reading it, you can do a lot to apply that insight in the moment to drive a really customized and personalized experience for the buyer. So what are some of the things we could do if we knew more? Imagine if we knew that Steve had come to our website and, clicked on an asset in our resources center, and from there, went on to watch an ebook and read a blog post and, spent 37 minutes. Imagine if we knew that across 5 assets, Steve spent 37 minutes consuming all of that information, right? We knew all the things he consumed, we knew the path that he took, we knew how much time, and we were able to connect it with other deeper insights around who Steve is. What industry is he in? Where is he on this journey? Are there other people at his company who are also, consuming information about this topic? What exactly are the topics he's interested in? What's that next best thing we should deliver to him based on all this information that we've just learned? Imagine if you knew all these things and were able to actually power a customized recommendation for Steve in the moment, not, the next time he clicks through, but right there. If you were able to say, look, this guy is clearly interested in these things. He's already looked at these 5 things. We don't need to show him those again. The next 5 things he should see are these. And look at all this intelligence we've collected that we can pass back to our sales team so they have some real insight into where this buyer is on the journey. Without these kinds of insights into how people are consuming content, you're sort of stuck in the old world. You're focused on just getting them to click. Let's get them to click a lot of times on a lot of things because that's how we're going to get them to finally move through all that content. Versus, I'm going to keep them engaged. I'm going to put them down a path and let them sort of drive this journey where they can consume as much and as fast as they want. You're forced to, stay in this sort of time-based model where you're sort of dripping content, once a week. Instead of, delivering marketing that moves at the speed the buyer does. You click through on my nurture email because you want to read this ebook? Great. You're showing an appetite for more information? Fantastic. In that moment, I'm going to let you self-nurture. I'm going to put you down a path that will show you the 5 next most relevant pieces of content for you in this moment. You're forced to, be throwing up forms in front of all your best offers so you have a signal that something's happened versus responding to that time spent with content, that consumption, that really relevant buyer behavior. You're sending lots of stuff. You're pushing lots of stuff out there just to try to get that buyer to become educated versus really understanding where they are in the journey. And, we're all guilty of this to some extent, but you're passing leads that aren't ready. You're passing leads that, sure, they may have clicked on a bunch of things, they may have shown up on your website, but what was the quality of that interaction? What was the quality of the engagement with your content? Because if somebody comes and clicks on a couple things but doesn't actually spend any time reading it, is that really an educated buyer that's ready to move to sales? Probably not, right? But when you can understand really how people are consuming information, you get much better insight into their intent and where they are in the journey. Look, I think B2B marketers have actually been trying to solve some of these problems for quite a long time. There's been a huge increase in content creation, 300%. Content creation is up 300%. but only 5% of the content that we create accounts for 90% of the engagement. So most of the engagement that we drive with our buyers comes from just a teeny, tiny bit of our content, which means we've got content out there that buyers can't find, that we've had trouble putting to use, that simply isn't relevant. And so creating more content isn't actually going to solve this problem. It's really about understanding how people are consuming the content so you can put it to use for you. Only 23% of marketers are satisfied with their ability to leverage customer data to create more relevant experiences. This customer experience has been on the minds of everybody. And I believe that a lack of insight into how people are consuming content has a lot to do with that. It's really hard to power a relevant recommendation when you don't know if somebody read the last thing that you pushed at them. So how do you do it? How do we do this? Well, content activation is really what an on-demand experience for B2B marketing looks like. It's a way to collect all this insight that I'm talking about where people are consuming stuff and how they're consuming it, and put that data to work in the moment to deliver a highly relevant experience. So rather than, sending your buyer to a static landing page or, pushing them to a page on your website or an asset, activating your content means packaging it up in relevant sequences. And that can be done on demand, algorithmically, so that your buyer who's just converted on your great display ad, instead of being met with that single asset, can, consume as much relevant information on the journey in that moment as they want, so that they can be brought to that leading call to action in the moment instead of trying to get them there later. So you allow your buyer to binge on content, to self-nurture, to consume a lot in the moment, which accelerates them down the path to purchase. It doesn't throw all these obstacles and walls in their way. It doesn't make it difficult for them to find what they need. It allows them in the moment to, self-serve. And try to get them to the place where you want to get them to, whether that's to request a demo or take a free trial, to build up the confidence and the context because they're educated and are ready to take that next step without you having to deliver 20 emails over 6 weeks, 9 weeks. Content activation also lets you to spot real buyers and know what they want. So to be able to separate that person who, clicked through and didn't actually spend any time with the content or meant to read it but didn't read it, a real buyer spends meaningful time with content. I'll go out on a limb and say even if your content is amazing, it's probably not light weekend reading that someone's doing for fun. So if you can identify buyers who are spending meaningful time with your content, reading an ebook for 5 minutes, watching a video all the way through to the end, coming to your blog and reading 5 posts and spending 25 minutes, that buyer is giving you a signal, a really strong signal of interest and intent. And if you can't spot it because all they did was click, it's really hard to react to it. So content activation allows you to really spot those buyers and know what they want, know the topics they're interested in, know the mediums and the types of assets they're interested in, so that you can not only empower your sales team to take action on that data, but so that you can fine-tune your marketing to adapt to it. It also allows you to place better bets. To know what content is working. I mean, this is sort of a tale as old as content marketing itself. I mean, content marketers haven't had great insight into what content they should be creating more of. I mean, again, they know, hey, we've had a lot of people download this asset, right? We've had a lot of people request this asset. But what if they knew the average viewing time across all of their assets? And what topics people seem to be consuming, and the ratio of how many people click to actually consume those assets. That's a really powerful set of data that can be used to drive a more relevant content strategy. And we all have this idea of how buyers will move through this buyer's journey. We create these assets and we think this one's for the top of the funnel, and this is for the middle, and this is for the bottom, and we're going to put them in a nice tidy little nurture and send it out over 10 weeks, and people will click through in that order. But it doesn't work like that, and it will never work like that. Buyers are, the buyer's journey is chaotic, and buyers have things that they are specifically looking for. Someone may want all the case studies. Someone may want, all the analyst research. And so tracking the journey through the content, the self-selected way that a buyer chooses to consume information can tell you a lot about how marketing should then deliver that information, how they should react and respond to that journey. And marketers don't have a ton to go on today when they're looking at evaluating channel performance. So, you know, the big sort of, you know, pieces of data that we tend to look at are cost and volume, right? How much did it cost me to get this audience? How many people, you know, converted? And that, you know, you might also have some metric that gives you a proxy for quality, like, oh, this many people became MQLs as a result of this channel. But what if on a channel-by-channel basis you knew exactly how much engagement you drove? You knew that that display campaign, you know, got lots and lots of people to click, but nobody stuck around and read the ebook. Versus this channel over here was really, you know, we were really successful in getting people to consume, but the volume of people who did it were smaller. You suddenly have a much more objective metric to understand how your channels are performing when the goal is to educate buyers and create buyers who are really sales ready and want to move forward. So, of course, I'm just a marketer working at a software company telling you these things, and you don't have to believe me. You don't have to believe me because there are lots of marketers who are adopting this approach, capturing all of this insight, putting it to work to drive really customized, personalized journeys, knowing better how their channels are performing, how their programs are performing, how their content is performing. And here are three folks who have done some really incredible things using Path Factory data in creating active content experiences. And after this webinar, we will certainly follow up with in-depth case studies from each of these folks. But you know, the use cases are all over the place in terms of you know, some marketers who are trying to drive better, you know, sales enablement processes. You know, folks who are using this kind of insight, engaged intent data, how people are consuming content, to incorporating that into their lead scoring programs to get better signals, better buying signals. You know, some of our customers like Mervyn here at Tibco, who's used a lot of our data to actually fine-tune how they nurture their buyers because they know a lot better now what content they want and in the order in which they want to receive it. And so there's no end to how content activation can help marketers, whether it's customer marketing, demand generation, event follow-ups, you name it, to really take that audience that you're trying to educate and help them to have a much better experience that's going to get them to the finish line a lot faster. So as I said before, you know, this whole thing is about this on-demand economy, this world that we're living in that's changed dramatically over the past several years. And B2B marketing is kind of the last frontier for this. You know, we just haven't caught up yet to what our buyers expect and what they need. And content insight and activation provides an opportunity to do this. It's really the opportunity to drive an on-demand B2B marketing experience. By monitoring the quality of the interactions along this journey, you're able to drive an experience with content that really helps and moves the buyer in a way that they want to consume that information. So I'm going to end it there and patent.
Thank you, Elle, for that great presentation, and it sparked some really great questions. So let's just jump right into those. The first one I have is from Danielle. Danielle asks, once you know how long visitors spend consuming your content, what do you actually do with that data?
Yeah, sure. Well, there's all kinds of things you can do with it. In real time, I mean, we can, you know, so our platform has the ability to actually drive a content recommendation sort of on the fly. I mean, you can see that based on all the metadata that we've captured and you know, about your content and how other people have consumed that content in the past, when we know that someone is interested in a given, you know, asset or topic or, you know, piece of content, we're able to actually deliver a really personalized journey right on the fly. But there's lots of other ways that people are using the insight. I think I actually just recently did my marketing team's QBR, and I mean, we use it as the lens through which we view a lot of different things. You know, we look to see how many people who have shown this kind of deep interest in content or consuming content, like do they move faster through the funnel? Do they convert at a higher rate? A lot of our customers, and we also power our lead scoring program using this data. So, you know, a lot of lead scoring is behaviorally anyways based on those traditional sort of more passive metrics, clicks, form fills, downloads, website visits. And so by passing that engagement data, you actually get a much deeper sort of threshold for interest and intent. And some of our customers are going so far as to kind of push out some of those older metrics because they don't tell them that much, right? I mean, I can look in our database and I can see tons of people have clicked on something. I can't tell them apart because I don't really know what they did after they clicked. So by looking at some of that insight, you know, you're able to get a much better handle on if this is a real buyer. A lot of our customers are using the data to pass directly to the sales team, either in the form of alerts or through an application that is available in Salesforce so that a sales rep can say, okay, cool, I'm about to call this person. I can see that they've consumed these 5 assets. They spent 35 minutes here, right? They know exactly sort of how to tailor what they're going to say, and they know exactly how interested someone is. So those are a couple different ways you can use the data.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense how it helps pretty much provide deeper insight into what topics they're interested in and if they actually have that interest in buying. That makes a lot of sense there. The next question we have is from Mike. Mike asks, who should be responsible for creating this quote-unquote on-demand experience at B2B companies?
Sure. We get this question a lot. Typically, I mean, in a lot of companies, it does sit in sort of a demand gen group because it's concerned with the creation of campaigns and programs and nurtures and, right? Sometimes there are folks on the digital side, if they are in charge of the website and they want to provide these on-demand experiences on the website, they might be involved. Sometimes you get content marketing folks because, you know, they're creating the content and they want to consume the data. So it runs the gamut, but it does tend to, I mean, historically our users and our buyers have been on the demand gen side. And, you know, I tell people this all the time, and it's completely true. It's the only tool in our tech stack at PathFactory that my entire team, the entire marketing team, knows how to use because it is the creation of content tracks. Once you have all of your content sort of tagged and, you know, in this content library, it's dragging and dropping and creating these tracks or, you know, powering it through an algorithm where you're just basically letting us take over. So it is really, it is simple in that way. But yeah, it does tend to be the domain of demand gen.
That makes sense. The next question we have is from Jamie. Jamie asks, what's the best way to measure minutes spent with content? Like, can you see time on page in Google Analytics? What do you suggest there?
Yeah, so I mean, our platform is actually, I mean, it's providing another way to do that. When you direct someone, I mean, think of us as just sort of a smarter destination, a smarter link. I mean, we can catch someone wherever they've clicked, so whether it's through a display ad, an email, somewhere on the website, and then again, instead of delivering them to sort of a static experience, a landing page or, you know, hosted asset or whatever, you're delivering them to a PathFactory content track, and that is really just where that journey begins. So, you know, by doing that, once they're in the content track and consuming information, we start the clock and we can see exactly where they go in that experience. We can see exactly how much time they spend with each asset. If they, just like Netflix, if they leave one asset and go to another and then go back, we can see that. So we actually start collecting a lot of information about how people are consuming the content the moment that they enter the content track, the content experience. And, you know, we push that data directly back into a marketing automation platform so that marketers then in real time can do things like augment lead scores, create alerts for sales, move people around. I mean, one of the things we do in our own nurture is when we see someone's engagement get really hot, like we see that, oh, this person's in here, they've clicked through on nurture email 1, they get to this content track and they end up consuming 5 of the next assets and they've spent a half hour and all this stuff, we actually when we pull that data back and we pull their engagement score back into Marketo, we actually put them in a new program. We move them into a new lead nurture because we know now this person has a strong appetite for information. They want to consume our marketing faster. So instead of our typical nurture cadence of, 1 email every couple of days or whatever, they go into fast track. They go into like the Autobahn of nurture. And so, anytime they click through, they are always able to consume a lot of content because content tracks enable that. We're able to package up a lot of assets so that you're not just sort of getting that one thing and having to wait, 2 weeks or whatever. But yeah, if we see that somebody is looking like they really are doing some research, we start to get a little bit quicker with how we push content at them.
Sounds very useful there.
Yeah.
Appreciate that answer. Next question we have is from Dan. Dan says, personalization can be very resource intensive. How do you actually optimize the buyer's journey at scale without having to hire a ton more people?
Yeah. So it's a lot of what I've already talked about. Really once you start to understand how people are consuming the data, consuming the content and have all this data about those consumption habits, you're actually able to power experiences much more quickly and easily. Again, we can power content recommendations through any channel based on an algorithm that looks at a whole bunch of things. What is this content about? What are other related pieces of content? What people who have consumed this asset before, what other things have they gone on to consume? And we can use all of that data to push a really tailored recommendation. And that takes a lot of the work out of it for the marketer. Really all they have to do is make sure they keep up with their metadata, on their content, tagging their content, and create a sort of experience that starts with an initial asset. We can take over the recommendation. So, marketers are pouring a lot of time and energy into the front end of personalization. Personalizing the ad, personalizing the website, the homepage or whatever. And so we try to take over where that ends. So if you got them to do that, can we then power a recommendation and a journey that's really relevant to them instead of saying, great, we spent all this time and personalized our website and we got you to click through and then you just go to the kind of dead end. Our goal is to put them down a journey where they can self-educate very quickly and it can be really, really relevant to them just based on the data we've collected.
Yeah, it sounds like there's just a lot of different benefits to it, especially when it comes to starting small and just creating one nurture path and seeing how it goes, and then ultimately just seeing how the content engagement ultimately can impact future content creation and save time and resources that way. So definitely agree with you there. Yep. Next question we have is from Nicole. Nicole asks, I already have a lead scoring model in place. How would you measuring content consumption change that model?
Yeah. So, as I said, I think there's a couple options. Some folks will just use the engagement, the content consumption data to essentially say, okay, we'll still score on all those things we used to score on, but consumption is worth more, and so they will essentially increment the score by a factor of 10 or 20 or something like that. Really use it to drive that, to power that sort of MQL engine. As I said, some folks are getting pretty, they see such good results with how people who have consumed a lot of information convert in the funnel, that they're no longer giving points for things like clicks or website visits. It's really all about the consumption, and they really just use the engagement data to power the score. And the other thing, one of the things that we do, so we run a pretty focused target account model at Path Factory, and so when we have our target accounts, if we see deep engagement, we actually trigger something called the fast-moving buyer alert, where we send an alert directly to a salesperson. If they own that account, it shows up in their inbox, and we say, look, this person just consumed these 3 assets. They spent 25 minutes. We think you should know. It's important. And again, these insights also can be made available to the salesperson right through Salesforce. So, the problem with lead scores is that they're a little dogmatic. You say, don't trust us. We know that if somebody does this many things, it's worth this many points, and then it's good. It's not particularly objective. When you show a salesperson that, they understand the concept of time, and so when you can show them time spent with specific assets, that tends to mean a lot more and drive a much better reaction and response from a salesperson.
That definitely makes sense there. Unfortunately, we do not have any more time for questions. However, if your question did go unanswered today, we'll be sure to have Elle and her team follow up, and our team as well, follow up via email to make sure that your questions get answered. Again, I want to thank Elle for such a great presentation, and thank you for all our attendees for taking the time to join us today. You can follow the link you see here on the screen to receive an on-demand version of this recording, or you can keep an eye out for a copy in your inbox that we will be sure to send you within the next couple of days, so stay tuned for that. Again, thank you all for taking the time, and have a great rest of the day.